been an exciting 24 hours, this deal coming together, and it's hard for me to properly articulate how excited we are that there's a deal in place, that we're all fully back to work and looking for ways to build upon what we feel is a very strong team. We have players starting to show up at the complex today, as you may know, those of you who are still out there, who I saw earlier in the week. Looks like you are, James. And by Sunday, we hope to have just about everyone in camp and ready to go. Obviously, we've just been able to reconnect with our players in the last 18 hours or so. I expect there'll be a visa issue or two to work through, but we will keep you posted come Sunday about where everyone's at if for whatever reason they're not in camp. So with that, I'll throw it open to questions.
All right, everybody, if you have a question for Rick, the drill, raise your hand. Let's start with Scott Merkin.
Thanks, Ray. Hey, Rick, you've dealt with shortened spring trainings or abbreviated spring trainings, then picked up spring trainings, unfortunately, in the past couple of years. How do you adjust for this time period, and how does that affect your construction of an already pretty, solid roster moving forward?
It is interesting, Merk, especially the one element that is added into this obviously shortened onboarding for the season is the fact that we haven't been able to communicate with our players for the last 100 or so days. So we are still in the process of gathering exactly where they are physically in terms of their preparation and health-wise. I think the combination of the shortened ramp up, the lack of dialogue over the last few months, as well as obviously our high expectations for this season, has created the expectation that pitching depth is going to be a priority. I think all 29 other clubs will probably say something similar in terms of trying to protect those very important elements of the club. But certainly from our perspective, being able to start the season off with the depth we need and build hopefully for over 7+ months of baseball, having that pitching depth is going to be key.
Is it way too early to talk 6-man rotation, creative rotation approach, or is that something you hit kind of in the ground running?
We've had some internal conversations about that, and Ethan and Haas and Tony have played around with some different ideas. Now, again, as we understand exactly, say, where Lance Lynn or Michael Kopech or whomever is at in terms of their personal pacing towards the season and building towards the season, that's sort of once we're face to face, you can start talking about how viable some non-5-man rotation ideas may be. So a little premature, but it is something in general we've talked about.
Armand.
Hello, Rick. Just what were the last 99 days like leading up to?
Well, it depends who you talk to. For me, and I think the baseball staff, certainly our scouts, it's been a little odd, not really knowing what to do with ourselves. You can obviously come up with different scenarios, but when you're not able to talk to other teams or free agents, there's only so much you can do in terms of planning. If you talk to my wife, there's probably a little too much loitering around the house and interfering with her world. So she is perhaps as happy as anyone in the baseball family that I'm departing for spring training tomorrow. But it could be frustrating because we all are by nature wanting to do what we can to make a team better. And obviously for the last few months, we haven't been able to do that. At the same time, it did give us a chance to sort of pause and reset and assess where we are as an organization, and give us a chance to perhaps appreciate some of the things we've accomplished here and the position we're in going forward.
James.
Normally you start off spring training by, briefing us on who's injured, because you haven't been able to kind of communicate with players during this time. Are you kind of getting in touch with everyone's at physically, since I think we saw, a team across town deal with a situation where a player is obviously injured while they can't communicate with him?
Yeah, and if there was anything that was abnormal or concerned about a surgical element, they were allowed to reach out through team doctors, so we wouldn't be blindsided by anything like that. But we are, as I alluded to, we are currently in the process of really just understanding where guys are in terms of their builds. If they have had any minor health things along the way, obviously that's going to come to light here in the next few days, and hopefully by the early part of next week we'll have programs in place for everyone to build them over the next 4 weeks leading up to opening day. Obviously, with no one having faced any game action at this point, and likely not doing that until a week from Saturday, unless we schedule something before then. It's the build's going to be a little different this year than it's been in previous years for the starters, and to a lesser extent for the relievers. So we're going to have to be careful with how we do this. We're again in this for the long haul, 7+ months, and once we get a proper assessment of where everyone's at, we can adjust the plans accordingly.
Yeah, is this going to be more cautious, or maybe the start of the season be a bit more conservative with inning and pitch counts for younger arms like Kopech or others, just given that it's a shorter spring training?
Generically, I think you have to shorter spring training, and then really over the course of the next 10 days and 2 weeks is going to be a fair amount of effort and communication involved in making sure guys don't try to do too much too soon, try to make up for any lost time or force the issue in terms of their preparation and getting them lengthened out. So it's going to be a challenge for all 30 teams, but quite frankly, we're thrilled to be in the position we're at right now, where we're talking about baseball and we're talking about getting our guys ready for an exciting season.
Cheryl?
Hi, Rick. How you doing?
Good, Cheryl. Good to see you.
One of the things about the new deal is the limitations of options down to 5. And with your issues, particularly with pitchers and dealing with this, trying to ramp them up correctly and judiciously, how do you handle that?
I think we will wind up planning for as much as we can in advance in terms of pacing out those roster decisions. That said, Cheryl, when you're in a year where you have high expectations, I think you're going to want to put the best people out there to win the game right in front of you. If that leads to a late in the season need to make a different decision because a guy's, perhaps on his last option for the season, then we'll have to adjust. That's kind of where the depth thing that I alluded to earlier comes into play. We want to make sure we have enough viable options to, have a handful of guys who are capable of helping us win at the major league level when needed.
With that said, are the phones ringing a lot trying to fill some more roster spots?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We're obviously in the process, as I said, communicating with our guys, getting everyone out there and preparing for how we're going to get ready for opening day in Detroit. But it's also like the winter meetings are going on at the same time in terms of the amount of dialogue, the conversations with agents, other teams, late into the night last night. And then once again, they pick up again this morning. So there is that sort of excitement that you get in December combined with the excitement you get in February when you're reporting to camp. It's unique and interesting and exciting time. And look, by nature, even if we had had a normal off season, we'd be sitting here in March for ways that we could potentially tweak a roster and get better. We obviously are aware that there's ways to improve this roster as it currently sits, even as good as we feel about it right now. So it's nice that there is that fluidity in the market going on right now to perhaps provide us with the chance to get better.
Daryl?
Rick, there's been some discussion about what your needs might be beyond the pitching staff. Second base is thought to possibly be one. Right field, another. Are you prepared to go forward with what you have there now, or are those a couple of areas that you see calling for improvement or upgrades?
We're prepared to go forward with the roster we have right now. However, we are fully aware that there's places where we can get ourselves better, pitching staff and position player wise. I did allude to, again, for various reasons, idiosyncratic to this season and where we're at today, that the pitching concerns may be a little heavier on our mind than the position player side of things. But generally, if there's a way to improve the club, we're going to exhaust those opportunities here over the next few weeks. I know, there was some understandable expectation that the second the lockout was lifted, that there were going to be all sorts of deals and a feeding frenzy, sort of like we see in some of the free agencies in other sports. That said, given the fact that we weren't able to communicate with agents and other clubs, I'm not surprised it's been a little bit slower than anticipated at this early stage, but I think it also means that this is probably going to continue at this pace or continue to have these dialogues and chances to improve, likely leading right up to the opener.
Vinny Duber.
Hey, Rick, when we talked to you a few times in November and right before the lockout ended, obviously you said that you guys were still thinking through some of the approaches that you were going to take to certain players, to certain moves going on, on the other side of the lockout. Given that you had 3 months to think about it, how has some of that, how did you guys kind of spend your time kind of figuring out an approach to take now that opportunity is here?
We had all sorts of different scenarios mapped out. What will happen if we're able to acquire this player? What does that lead to here? Sort of a, plan A through plan, I don't know, R in terms of different scenarios about how this would go. In reality, it's only been the last 18 hours that we're able to sort of see what's possibly viable and what's not. I guess the best way to put it is we know we have a team that's very capable of winning a championship as it is, but that's not going to stop us from continuing to explore every different avenue to improve the club. And when, it's easy for us to sort of do that in our offices and out at minor league mini camp or whenever we're able to sort of gather as a group of staff members. But really it's now you blend those plans with reality here over the next several weeks. And again, it's nice that we have the opportunity to get better now, regardless what happens between now and opening day. We're going to continue to explore those opportunities well into the season and through the trade deadline. We know where we're at as an organization right now, and finding a way to get better is not going to stop tonight. It's not going to stop in a week once we start getting in the games, and it's certainly not going to stop come opening day.
You mentioned that some of those, some of these moves around the league, but also with yourselves might take all the way up till opening day to build these rosters. What kind of challenge does that present, bringing in new players and new pieces with not a lot of time to get acclimated to not only you guys, but just the season in general with how they've had to be on hold? Yeah.
I mean, look, we're all in the same boat, all 30 clubs. And I think on both sides, player and team side, everyone's just excited to be talking about baseball and getting going again and trying to how we're going to compete and how we plan to win. So sure, there's going to be challenges in terms of integration or getting guys up and running to the level we need. Easy, Hugo. But it's not unique to us, and we'll take those problems over what the perceived problems would have been a couple of days ago.
Jesse Rogers.
Hey, Rick, just kind of a follow up to all that conversation. So you don't think like guys are going to rush to get into camp in terms of like free agents and stuff? Like they're thinking more about the regular season than getting in by Sunday and Monday. Because I know some agents were worried that there'd be a squeeze. They'd have to take the first deal they get. But you sense guys are going to shop around still and take some time?
We'll see. It's been 18 hours, basically. There were certainly agents last night who were receiving offers from various clubs. So it very much could be you start seeing some things occur as soon as today. That said, I was more alluding to the fact that once the lockout was lifted at whatever time it was last night, the fact that there wasn't the flurry of like NBA or NFL deals that you tend to see when free agency starts in those sports wasn't a great surprise. There were still conversations that had to be had, both externally, obviously with agents and other clubs about trades, but again, getting a true assessment about where your own players are and what you can expect from them going forward.
What can you tell us what time your first call was? Or was it to a GM or an agent? Like, did you have somebody in mind I need to get a hold of as soon as this is over?
Yep.
Mark Gonzalez.
Hi, Rick. I know this is the third choppy spring training we've encountered, and you made some changes in your medical training staff to kind of address some of the injuries you had. And I know a lot of other teams had the same injuries, but do you feel at least more optimistic going into this season in terms of preventive maintenance and ways to kind of avoid these, have a good blueprint?
Yeah, definitely feel good about the blueprint. Definitely feel great about the staff, the support, the technology, the planning. That's all in place to support and promote player health. Again, there's going to be some unique challenges to this season in the preparation for spring and for the season that lays ahead that every team's going to face. And unfortunately, there's also a degree of randomness in terms of when some of these injuries occur and how. So we're going to be as cautious as we possibly can as we ramp these guys up and get them ready for the season. And we all feel very good about the support that surrounds them starting today when they show up.
Bruce.
Hi, Rick. Nice to see you.
Hey, Bruce.
Good to see you, Rick.
Good to see you as well.
Can you hear me, Rick? Hello.
Hey, Bruce, your audio's choppy. We'll come back to you.
Can you hear
But it
me?
is good to see you, Bruce.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce, try again.
All right. First of all, it appears that if you do want to make some trades, that there are teams that might match up pretty well with you as far as younger talent in your organization that you might not have to go off of your major league club. If that is the case, and again, that's only my assumption. You do your own work, I do mine. Would you say that there's opportunities out there to improve your pitching if you want to go in that direction with some of your minor leagues?
Is there an opportunity to make trades for potential pitching help? Is that the question?
I mean, do you think there's good matchups for you with the teams that have pitching inventory?
I mean, we do. And we had obviously dialogue with them prior to the lockout and have revisited some of those conversations. In the end, I think from the trade standpoint, everyone's sort of taken a beat and reassessing the potential fits and seeing what the alternatives truly are as we get headed into camp. And I certainly feel like from a trade capital standpoint, if that's what you're getting at, we have the ability to make the deals or make deals to address our needs at the major league level. The question is just whether we're going to align with the other clubs.
My second question is, have you been informed by Major League Baseball if there'll be a taxi squad or additional players available as far as the roster goes as of yet?
That was something they were going to revisit once spring training was up and running. They obviously had some more immediate, bigger fish to fry over the last few days, but there is a plan to revisit April rosters and plans for the early part of the season in the next few weeks.
You expect that to be the case?
I mean, we'll see. It's too soon, unfortunately, to say.
Thank you.
Mike Berman.
Hey, Rick, I got a lot going on at home here. I'm going to spare you the video element. And that means that's just, and to be clear, that's just two boys and two dogs running around. You talked about the championship expectations. Obviously, you guys have, gone from that rebuild mode to making the playoffs in back-to-back years. And now, where's your head at? Do you feel like, is it get to the World Series or bust, win the ring or bust? I know there's so much randomness that comes with a baseball season, but how would you kind of characterize your guys' specific expectations for this season, given what you've accomplished over the last couple of years?
Mike, I don't think any of us would be doing our jobs properly. And by that, I mean the front office, players, coaches, if our aspirations weren't to win a championship, and feeling that we need to do everything in our power to win the World Series in 2022. I'm not real good at feeling that we've met our expectations or satisfied our expectations if it doesn't end with us winning a championship. Now, obviously, a lot can happen health-wise, competitiveness-wise, various other things that impedes your ability to win a championship in any given season. And ultimately, we want to do everything in our power to put ourselves in the best position to do that. And if it doesn't happen, then we can assess sort of the reasons why on the back end. But I think right now, to a man and woman in the organization, the goal is to do everything in our power to win in 2022.
Scott Merkin.
Sorry about that. Hey, Rick, I know no one in the world wanted these last 99 days, but you, in the short term here, you had a chance to really get a good look at your minor league system, guys working out there. I know Tony was out there pretty much every day too, taking a look. I know you know what you have, but was it a good chance to kind of see the guys who are going to help now, or in the near distance, and also a little further out, maybe?
No, that was definitely a positive. We had more time and more resources around for the minor league mini camp, as well as for the minor league spring train over the last few weeks. And that includes not just being able to see the players, but also dialogue between major league staff and minor league staff, and making sure that there's that continuity that we want between all the way up the chain, which you frankly don't always have the opportunity to do when big league camp's going on simultaneously. It's been a nice several weeks or months, actually, going back to when they first got down there, and seeing some of our young guys and the way they've improved and the physicality that has changed on some of them, as well as get to know from a makeup standpoint some of the things that our player development and staff and scouts have been talking about for a while. So it's definitely been good for the organization. It's been good for all of us to see these guys a little more closely than we've been able to in previous years. So yeah, there's a little silver lining over the last 90 plus days.
Just a quick take on what you've seen from Oscar Colas just in his short time within the organization.
Glad we got him. Look, obviously he hasn't played every day against competition in a while. So just like some of our other, Cuban immigrants in recent years, it's going to take a little bit to get him back, in game speed and ramping up the way and ready for everyday game action to perform at the peak of his abilities. But the tools are there, the physicality's there. Makeup is strong, and I'm glad he's one of ours.
James.
We bothered you about it at GM meetings and before the lockout, so why not check again? Has the 100 days given you any more chance to clarify what the role for Garrett Crochet might be this season, between bullpen or starting or something in between?
I mean, again, let's see where everybody's at over the next few weeks, especially Garrett. I think that you're going to see him used primarily as in the bullpen role. It may look a little similar to how Kopech was used in 2021 in terms of the occasional longer outing or the occasional spot start as needed. But unfortunately today, the answer is probably the same as it would have been for going back to the GM meetings, because want to see the player and where he's at and build a plan for him once we're all together.
Obviously, you made some moves before the lockout, but now that the smoke is cleared to some degree, and you know what the CBA is there any advantage in having that knowledge as you go forward in shopping?
I think there's an advantage to knowing that we have 4 weeks to get ready instead of 6+, and that we also, again, are able to gather sort of where our players are from a progression standpoint. It's a little different when you're filling needs in December and then something creeps up in January or February that changes your needs. Now we're sort of close enough to the season that over the next several days, we'll know exactly where guys are, which could impact which acquisition path we follow.
Next is Hyde Park's own Lawrence Holmes.
Rick, 2 questions, one football, one baseball. The football question is, the new GM of the Bears has said that he's going to reach out to a bunch of the other teams because he likes to get feedback cross sports wise. Wondering, has he reached out to you? And if so, would you be okay with talking to him?
Yeah, I sent Ryan a note when he was hired and gave him my contact information, cell number, email, all that, so that we could connect about each of our organizations, but also on a personal level, just, having raised kids here. And I know he's got young children and may well settle into the area. So I reached out to offer any help or guidance I could along those lines as well. We have not connected yet. Obviously, he's been pretty busy. I've been quite the opposite, but he's been pretty busy. So I suspect that will happen at some point once we get a little more into the summer.
Okay, cool. The second question is, what do you see as the pros and cons of the new playoff format?
Look, more teams getting in gives you an individual club more shots on goal to win a championship. We've obviously seen years where it's been, last year was the number 3 seed that broke through. We've seen years that the wild card has broken through to win a championship, and this will give more opportunity to more clubs, which obviously includes us. Certainly this year, and I would hope every year, our aspirations are to win the division and put ourselves in a strong position for postseason seeding. But if there's ever years where we're a little closer to the final spot as opposed to winning the division, then good. You get in, you get hot, and you might find a way to bring home a ring. Certainly should increase excitement along in more baseball cities and more baseball fandoms throughout the summer and into the early fall, which obviously is a positive. Again, from a 2022 White Sox standpoint, the first goal is to win the division, and therefore the expanded playoffs wouldn't necessarily come into play for us. Seeding obviously would matter, but seeding's always mattered to us, and we're going to do everything in our power to put us in the best spot.
Cool.
Unless anyone else raises their hand, looks like our last question will be Bruce. Go ahead, Bruce.
Rick, what type of benefit is it for you and the organization and certainly Kenny and Mr. Reinsdorf to have Tony and Ethan in their second year and no longer in that keen observation mode of just fitting in and doing your job at the same time, now just an integral part of the club?
Yeah, I think that is important. The continuity in the staff it becomes even more essential given the shortened spring, and given you would hate for having the aspirations that we have this year and our staff having not been able to build relationships with the players over the course of the off season, and put on top of that a shortened spring. That would create more challenges than you're looking to have in any given spring. So it's definitely a positive. Obviously, Ethan's reputation last year preceded him with many guys in our clubhouse due to his relationships with Lucas and others. Tony, throughout the game, obviously revered and no real concerns about how he was going to run his camp. But I do think, given the challenges of the past several months and the shortened spring that lies ahead, having already established those relationships and familiarity with our club is going to be a nice positive.